3 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, a soldier who went to Camp Shelby, Mississippi, and had to attend a workshop about hate groups, domestic hate groups. They're talking KKK, the skinheads, the neo-Nazis, etc. Up pops a slide of the station as a domestic hate group. And this guy takes a picture with his cell phone because he's a supporter of ours, and he knows we're not a hate group. And so he notifies us and others. We begin to hear from others that this is going on in the Army. It was confirmed that it happened also at Fort Hood. And so we've been working with Congress and also in the media and doing our own action here at American Family Association to try to get this changed. And so this leads up to what Fred is about to tell you happened as a result of our actions.
Yeah, as a result of our action, the late last week that all such training will cease and not to ever take place again. And, just to flesh it out a little bit, this wasn't just saying stay away from American Family Association. This depicted the American Family Association as being a threat to the country, as being akin to the KKK, and that you need to stay the message to the audience, Fort Hood.
And they had to be there and listen. This isn't an elective course.
No, and this is the other thing that was troubling Tim. This wasn't a bunch of guys sitting around the dining table at the mess. This was a formal session. In the Fort Hood case, it had to do with a bunch of guys who were about to be deployed. So it was a formal session. Still haven't figured out why they were talking to these guys about domestic groups when they're about to be deployed to Afghanistan. Don't understand that. That's one aspect of it. Anyway, painted a very negative picture, told these guys who were sitting in the audience, don't donate to these groups. If we find out about it, you're going to get in trouble. Now, in the wake of all of this coming to light, and Todd Starnes, I think, is going to join us in a few moments, Todd was finding out that the guys who gave him information, and Todd did not reveal who they were, but the Army began to try to find out who the whistleblowers were, and they were going to get in trouble. So this is fairly serious stuff. But when all of these stories started to come to light, the Secretary of the Army decided enough is enough. Very embarrassing for the Army, and that's why he had to make a move on this. So we're told that no such training sessions will take place again. As a result of this being revealed to the public, they should have never taken place in the beginning, we are told. But it still is a bit of a mystery, Tim, to me, and we need to find out how is it that the Southern Poverty Law Center is still being used as a resource by the United States military, Southern Poverty Law Center having labeled Family Research Council, AFA, as hate groups for simply saying homosexuality is a sin.
Yeah, and so that's SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's the group in Montgomery, Alabama. They're a far left group. Their origins are in the civil rights movement. They had a legitimate reason for existing way back when.
Way back.
They no longer do anymore, so they're searching for a reason to exist. They're sitting on $250 million or something like that. So they just issue this hate group list. And the Army, the military, I guess, and the Department of Justice, we've learned, have adopted the SPLC's definition of what a hate group is. Joining us, a gentleman who's been doing some great reporting on this, Fox News reporter Todd Starnes. Todd's been on with us many times. Todd, good morning to you.
Tim, good morning, and glad to be with you. By the way, guys, I've got some new information to share with you.
Okay.
All right. Well, is this breaking news?
This is. We have yet to report on this, but the military, after our exclusive reporting on this, the Secretary of the Army backed down, said they were going to pull all of this material and retrain these equal opportunity instructors. Well, we have just received the training, the refresher course that the Army is now mandating. And we received this information from one of those equal opportunity trainers who happens to be a Christian. And they are telling me that it's outrageous and that the Army is just trying to cover itself, and that they do not address the extremism problem.
Repeat what you just said now, Todd. That who doesn't address the extremism problem?
The Army does not. The Army does not address this information about extremism in their refresher course. So again, they pulled the original training materials that referred people to the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Okay.
But the new materials do not take that information out.
Huh. Including the American Family Association as a hate group?
Well, now, again, that information is not in specific Army materials. That information is at the Southern Poverty Law Center's website.
Okay.
But the Army uses the Southern Poverty Law Center as a resource, as a vetted resource. And the only reason I know that, Tim, is because I have something I shouldn't have right now. I have a copy of the 600-page plus Army Equal Opportunity Management Training Guide.
Talking to Todd Starnes from the, you can go to toddstarnes.com. Where can they read your latest report on this, Todd?
Well, we will have it. We'll have it up on my column at foxnews.com. You can also find all of our stories at toddstarnes.com.
Well, the main thing I'm concerned about is, the SPLC is one thing. I mean, they can name call all day long, I guess, and they reference us as a hate group. But the Army adopting the SPLC's list, that's what bothers me. That shouldn't be so. If the Army's going to do anything, they should do it on their own internally. And that's what was a mystery about these explanations that we got from the Army, saying that when this was brought to their attention by some congressmen and by media reports like yours and some of the stuff we've done here, is they say, well, this list that was being used at Camp Shelby in Mississippi was not a officially approved Army list. This trainer was getting his information off the internet, and so it does. In other words, they were saying it was the Army spokesman saying we're not responsible for what happens in the Army training. I mean, it was really bizarre.
Tim,
go ahead.
Tim, I can assure you that these instructors are not going rogue.
Okay.
They're using official materials that are vetted by the Army. So the Army telling us, and let's go back to what happened at Fort Hood, where we had the soldier come out and tell us out of that briefing that they were told that the greatest threats to national security are the Tea Party and evangelical Christians. The Army told us it wasn't true. They told us that this particular soldier had an axe to grind, even though they had no idea who our source was. They said the soldier had an axe to grind. And then all of a sudden we got a second source. And then the local media got two additional sources. So we've got so the Army is telling us one thing. The soldiers, the chaplains are telling us another. And so far, every piece of information we've received has turned out to be not only authentic, but 100% accurate.
Todd, it's Fred Jackson here. Just a question. The material that this refresher course still makes reference to the Southern Poverty Law Center, correct?
No, it does not.
It doesn't.
It does not. And again, they're referring people back to their training manual.
Okay.
And that's the information that has not been updated.
Okay. And in that training manual, does it make specific mention of groups like Family Research Council and American Family Association?
No, it does not. But it does refer people to organizations that list you guys as hate groups.
Okay.
So that's how the Army's able to kind of wiggle out of this.
Right. And so that gives the trainer the latitude, if he or she wants to get specific about these groups, they can start mentioning groups like the American Family Association to a class.
That's right. And look, if you're the instructor of the class, and the Army tells you this is a vetted source, this is an approved source, you're going to use that material and not think twice about it.
Yeah.
What's going on here, folks? You pull back all this stuff, and is that you got left-wing social engineering going on in the United States military. That's what you got going on. If the Army, let's just say for the sake of argument, and I mentioned this before, that AFA and FRC were hate groups. Okay, what in the world would the Army ever have to do with the American Family Association? It makes nothing. The answer to that is zero, nothing. If we were to get in trouble by somebody for being some kind of threat, it would be from the FBI or Homeland Security. That would be the people that would be responsible for domestic terrorist groups, for goodness sakes, or hate groups, whatever you want to call us. So I don't even understand, Todd, why the Army would spend 5 minutes talking about the KKK or skinheads or AFA. What's the purpose? To what end?
Tim, they spent less than 30 seconds talking about Islamic extremism at Fort Hood, which was the location of Islamic jihad that was waged by Nidal Hassan. And then they went on and to spend at least a half an hour talking about how evangelical Christians are the real terror threat in the country. What's going on is this, and and this is just my opinion, and I've talked about this in our commentaries. I believe that the Obama administration is turning the military against the people. They're separating the military from the people. And if you're training all of these 17 and 18, 19-year-old kids, all these new recruits, that what's happening down at the local First Baptist Church is a threat to national security. One day down the road, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, when the military decides to come in or the government decides to come in and shut down the churches, these folks in the military aren't going to have a second thought about it because they've been trained to believe that what happens at the First Baptist Church is extremism.
Isn't it? I think it's kind of interesting, too, that this story follows on the heels of what the IRS was doing to the Tea Party and other conservative groups. So in my mind, there's an ideological shift that's going on from, I believe, the White House on down, that these are our political enemies. We need to do what we need to do to silence them. Is that an exaggeration, do you think, Todd?
Oh, I certainly don't believe that is an exaggeration. We are right now going through the 600-page-plus manual, and I'm just absolutely shocked at some of the things I've been reading that the military is training our fighting men and women. For example, they're teaching them that sexism it can be blamed partially on the Bible. There's also a major section in their training about white Christian privilege and how that's led to all sorts of trouble in the nation. So it seems as though that instead of protecting and defending the nation, they're training up our soldiers to implement some sort of policy or some sort of a political agenda.
Folks, you can read about this at onenewsnow.com, or go to Todd's report as well. We link to Todd's report, but you can go to Todd's report directly at where is it going to be, or where is it?
Folks can go to foxnews.com and they'll find they can find me there.
We're talking to Todd Starnes from Fox News and also Fred Jackson from onenewsnow.com. Ray Pritchard is co-hosting with me today. I'm Tim Wildman. We're talking about some good news that happened late last week, wherein the Army, they said American Family Association was not a hate group, and that they were changing their training materials they were using to train soldiers on what a domestic hate group is. And so the story is still evolving, as Todd just explained to you some of the things that he's learned even over the weekend. Ray, you got any questions for Fred or Todd?
And Todd, it seems to me that if you bore down to the bottom of this, what we're trying to figure out is whether or not the statement by the Secretary of the Army was just window dressing, or if it's truly good news. So how do we sort that out, given what you've learned over the weekend?
Well, I've been very disappointed in the Army and their misrepresentation of the facts, which is a polite way of saying the L word. I just don't know what to believe, and I think that's a sad thing. When the military can't even be honest with you about what is in black and white. We have the documentation. What I'm encouraged by are the growing number of lawmakers on Capitol Hill who are not only expressing outrage but are promising to call hearings to get to the bottom of this. And that's the problem. We don't know where this is ultimately coming from. Who in the Obama administration is going after Christians? Who in the Obama administration is trying to make life as difficult as possible for people of the Christian faith serving in the military? We don't know the answer to that question just yet.
This is the same crowd that used the IRS to go after conservative groups, including the Tea Party. So this shouldn't be so. Shouldn't happen in America. But you have the Obama administration using the power of the federal government to go after their what perceived as their political enemies.
What I find troubling, gentlemen, is the official reference to groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center as a trusted source to be used in a training course. We also had the story last week, and Todd, I know you reported on this also, what was happening at the Air Force Academy.